weiß Bescheid.
And where's it? Boom! That's it. Boom! Boom! We're live, everybody. Hey, welcome to. That was the first time the boom didn't show up. A lot of energy in the room. Welcome to Red TV in Conversation. I'm Peter Clarke, and so happy that you are here joining us today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you were here for the very first time, thanks for showing up. Appreciate it. If you're here for returning and you know what the show is all about, we appreciate that too very, very much. So here we are. We're, the whole point of the Red TV is amplifying beautiful voices, people that are doing great things in the world, amplifying, lifting all the boats. See that soul over there? Doing such a thing right now. That's what that person is doing. If you like what you see, please, here's the only sales pitch I got for you. If you like what you see here, please like and share with your network and share. The whole point of these conversations is making sure we're reaching as many people as we can. Very much like our conversation today, we want to reach as many people as we can and amplify goodness in the world. This gentleman over here, I am so pumped. I mean, I'm pumped all the time because I get to speak to some amazing people. But this person, just a little bit more special for me, and there's many reasons why. But I came introduced to Rollin through a documentary that I saw many years ago by the name. It's called 𝗖𝗹𝗿𝗀𝗁. 𝗏𝗟𝗏 is the director. So look that up. 𝗖𝗹𝗿, and Rollin was in it, and there's a great little scene in there, and I know the story behind that now. But long story short, it became quite popular within that documentary, and that's how I learned more about HeartMath. And since that time, my beautiful wife Renuka has been studying HeartMath for quite a long time, and so she's very, very familiar with it. So it's been fun this week talking and researching Rollin and everything to do with HeartMath, because I would say to my spouse, "Hey, did you know this? Did you know?" And she's, "Yes, I do know that because we talked about it before." And many times she would quote this fine young gentleman here. We have so much to talk about. I mean, He said, I talked to Rollin briefly. He sent me some information. I've been on their website and so on. I've just been inundated for the last 10 days of just soaking up HeartMath Institute and everything about it. But let me try to do justice with this fine soul right here. Rollin McCraty, a PhD, by the way, everybody. Very smart man. Director of Research at the HeartMath Institute, professor at Florida Atlantic University, and psychophysiologist, and a whole bunch of other things of words that I'm trying to get around. He's been with HeartMath Institute since its founding in 1991, has been instrumental in researching and developing the HeartMath system, tools, and technology, of which we're going to talk about today. He's worked with in joint partnership with many universities. I want to give a shout out to one, but specifically Stanford and Prince Sultan Cardiac Center in Saudi Arabia, and in a part of the world where I'm from, Halifax, Nova Scotia, Dalhousie University. Shout out to Dalhousie right there. So that's fantastic. He's been on everything when it comes to TV, everything. CNN, ABC, NBC, ABC, PBS. He's done documentary films, as I mentioned, 𝗖𝗹𝗿 and The Living Matrix and a whole bunch of other things. I could go on, but we got lots to do here. This is just an incredible opportunity, and I'm so pumped to have this gentleman come on the show. Rollin McCraty, how are you?
I'm doing great. Great to be here, Peter.
Oh, was that an introduction? We could be speaking. It'll take time. Just to tell people what you've done. One thing we do have in common, Rollin, which I don't talk about much. with people in general, but telecom background. I know you worked with Motorola back in the day. I, in Canada, worked with different companies as well in telecommunications with, cell sites and, setting up cellular networks and all that kind of stuff, fiber optics and all that kind of stuff. So, hey, a little bit of commonality there and so on. Great to see you, my friend. I so appreciate you being here. I got to start just very simply, quickly with you and your family. Is everyone okay? Everyone's safe?
Wherever you want to go, let's go with the flow.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure everyone's feeling good and we're going in the right direction here. I think one of the things I want to talk about here is we'll set up HeartMath, and I think there's so much to understand about it. I want to make sure that people get out to the website and they can check out more about what HeartMath is all about. But in the meantime, right this second, Roland, if you don't mind bearing with me, I'm going to play this quick little video. This comes from the HeartMath Institute, kind of sets up a little bit of everything we're going to touch upon very quickly so that you don't have to be repetitive with anything, because I know you do so many of these beautiful interviews, and I appreciate that. Let's have a quick peek at everybody, just a minute or two here. A little bit about HeartMath, and then we'll dive right into all of the questions that I know a lot of people are actually sending me and asking me and so on, which is fantastic. So we'll go from here. Here we go. Let's check out HeartMath.
At the HeartMath Institute, our mission is to help awaken the heart of humanity and to empower people of all ages and backgrounds to connect more deeply with the intuitive guidance of their own hearts. People are increasingly realizing the important role intuition plays in becoming who they truly are. Founded in 1991 by 𝗟𝗶𝘃𝗲𝗿, we have developed a system of scientifically validated techniques based on our study of heart rate variability and brain interactions. A key discovery from this research is heart coherence, an optimal state in which the heart, mind, and emotions are cooperating together in harmony rather than in competition and discord. Through the practice of coherence-building techniques, people are able to create and sustain their life with significantly less stress, clearer choices, and more resilience, resulting in increased authentic connection with others. Research conducted at the HeartMath Institute is proving the credibility of heart coherence for facilitating sustainable change on a personal, social, and global level. With over 400 peer-reviewed or independent studies and over 11,000 citations in Google Scholar, HeartMath Institute has made significant contributions to the scientific community's understanding of stress and emotions. Key areas of study include increasing resilience, activating intuitive connection, and revealing the benefits of global interconnectivity. Our interconnectivity research, featuring live scientific data streams, is umbrellaed under our Global Coherence Initiative. This is an international effort that seeks to facilitate the shift in global consciousness from instability and discord to compassionate care, cooperation, and increasing peace. The Global Coherence App, Monitoring System, Global Consciousness, and tree research projects allow worldwide participation while informing our research. We are at the dawn of recognizing love as the new transformational intelligence. This is the heartbeat of our research, training programs, initiatives, tools, and technologies to help awaken and activate humanity's capacity to love. We are the HeartMath Institute. Thanks for taking the time to learn more.
Wow, Roland. And you are pretty much on the front line of every single one of those things that we just saw there. Let's just jump right in. There's so much there to talk about, but that's the fun foundation, everybody. Please go to the website. You can check it out there. Let's talk a little bit about coherence. How about that, Roland? That popped up many times there. We're talking about coherence and then eventually leading to heart coherence and so on. Just give us a little bit of background of this concept of coherence so that we can move in the direction of understanding heart coherence. A little bit about that.
Sure, Peter. I mean, coherence is, I think most people have an intuitive sense of what coherence means. If you look it up in the dictionary, it's usually about the quality of someone's speech. So hopefully you and I are having a coherent conversation, right? And if one of us had had a bit too much to drink, and we show up a little tipsy and we're kind of uttering nonsense, what do we say? God, they're incoherent, right? So it's
True.
actually similar how it's used in science and physics. And coherence is a concept that is used in every branch of science you can think of, from the molecular to the astrophysics. I mean, we live in a coherent universe. So coherence is about as simply as I can say it, is a kind of a big umbrella term
Yes.
to describe the coordinated behavior of all the parts of a complex system. Are they working together harmoniously? Right. And for that to happen, there has to be communication between the parts. Right. So
Right.
it has to do with wholeness and how the output of something, or like us as a living being, is greater than the sum of all the parts. And in a coherent system, it means we're using energy very efficiently. And if we're more incoherent, the parts aren't working together so well, and we're wasting energy and have a dysfunctional output, depending upon the level of that disharmony or harmony within the parts of the system.
The parts of the system. Great segue into, that part of where we're going with when we talk about heart coherence. Let's talk a little bit about, again, everybody, I want to emphasize any subject I bring up with Rollin right now, we could literally do a 2-hour show on easily, multiple presentations on all of these. So we're touching on them right now. Hopefully down the road, we'll maybe take one or two and dig into them. But let's go with those, the basis of some of this conversation here about the heart and the brain and the communication part. There's those two systems you talk about, coherence, how they talk.
Right.
Give us a little bit of that background, Rollin, when it comes to this idea that the heart actually sends more information to the brain. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, you just said it. Now that sounds like some new discovery, right? That the heart sends more information to the brain than the other way around. Well, no, this has been known since the late 1800s. It's basic anatomy. I won't go into all. We could spend so much time just talking about the anatomy, but
yes,
in fact, the nervous system that connects the heart and brain, you think of them as wires. It's part of our autonomic nervous system. These are nerves that have thousands of fibers in them, but 90% are carrying information from the body to the brain. Only 10% brain down to body, and the majority of those ascending pathways, I'll call them here, are from the heart and cardiovascular system. So, in fact, psychology, the understanding used to be based on this fact, from the late 1800s up until the 1930s or so. Then we got enamored by the brain and forgot a lot of the basics of how the body actually works. And so the heart and brain are more interconnected through multiple pathways, but especially through the nervous system than any other systems in our body. Yeah, the story really gets interesting in the 1970s when the pendulum started swinging back to remembering what had been already known, in that I'll just call it for this discussion, the quality of the neural information signals being sent from the heart to the brain have profound effects on brain function, right? And terms were introduced back then. I'll just mention them very briefly. One was cortical inhibition. Cortex, part of our brain we get paid to go to work for, right? It's inhibited. Right? We don't think clearly. We call it mental fog, or my brain scrambled, or my nerves are, fried or afraid. These terms is what we commonly use to describe that effect. And the other term is called cortical facilitation. In other words, we think clearer when the heart and brain are in sync, literally. And not only that, a lot of the signals from the heart are going to another part of they go to all major parts of the brain, but specifically one's called the amygdala, which is where we experience and process a lot of emotional information. In fact, the cells in the amygdala, the parts of this, are literally synchronized to the heart. So every time the heart beats, the cells in the amygdala fire with it. So whatever that rhythmic pattern of the heart is actually informing the emotional centers in the brain how we feel. So why do we say "I love you with all my heart"? I've never heard anybody say "I love you with all my brain." Right.
Right.
That probably wouldn't get us very far down. Right.
That's not very romantic on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, exactly. So we instinctively and intuitively know that there's something more about the heart than just being this thing that's beating away in our chest, pumping blood. That it has a deeper relationship with our emotions and our, in our language, with our wisdom. What do we say? Play with your heart.
Right.
Right. Or ask your heart. It knows the answers. And so we've just been doing the last 30 years the science to actually say that's real. It's not just a metaphor or some, wives' tale thing.
Right. I think what's fascinating about this as well is, like you said, it's not new. It's just that it seems to just to be part of our language now over the last decade or so, specifically over the last few years. But again, this has been going on for quite a while. Now, again, this connection, this energy that you're referring to, that seems to be not seems to be, is mathematically proven and scientifically captured by the research that you've done at HeartMath, is that the brain and the heart communicating with this electrical magnetic field. But of course, that stems to the concept that it's connected to the earth. Now I'm going to bring up a slide, and maybe you can talk to the energy of the field of the earth, and then correlate those two together for people that don't maybe not understanding what we're trying to get at here. Is that, this idea that we are one is mathematically and so scientifically proven. So let's talk about the Earth's magnetic field, and then this connection between the brain and heart, so that we can get to that point of where we're all feeling like we are one.
All right, sure. You said you're going to bring up a slide.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up a slide right now.
I have no idea where we're going.
Oh, I'm sorry. No worries.
Right.
No. I'm going to bring up energetic communication. That's what I'm going to bring up. I'm going to bring up the concept of that. And let me just grab this slide here real quick, and then you can kind of.
While you're doing that, if we're going to go into energetic communication. So that image that you're showing, that kind of donut-looking field, well, that's representing the magnetic field produced by the heart. So I just kind of keep this simple. When we put electrodes on the body, like doctors do millions of times every day around the world, what we're measuring is the flow of electrical current. That's why it's called the electrocardiogram, right? Or the electrocephalogram for measuring brain waves. But whenever there's a flow of current, which we measure with the electrodes, this is basic physics, right? We produce a magnetic field. Now, one of the qualities of magnetic fields is they go through things. In fact, this is why cell phones work indoors. Right, it's the magnetic component that you mentioned. My previous history of Motorola, as a communication engineer, something I know a little bit about. So when the heart beats and we measure the electrocardiogram, we also produce a magnetic field that the electrodes don't see. We have to have a different instrument to measure that, and that's called a magnetometer. So how do I know this field and that shape I'm showing you is real? Because we can measure it, right, with a device called the magnetometer. And this is well known. In fact, I've got a book on my bookshelf back here that, believe it or not, in 1886, the heart's magnetic field was measured externally from the body, and they even got the shape right.
Wow.
Back then. So, I mean, so much of this has been known and forgotten. Every now and then I still run across some, muckety muck who knows everything. There's no such thing as a magnetic field. And I'm like, oh, come on.
Right.
So here's the point, though, Peter. The field, just like we would do with a radio. I'm an old guy now, right? And I remember I'm back when we used to have to turn knobs on radios,
Yes.
tune in the station, right?
Yes, of course.
Right. So we are very good at using in technology these are like fields to carry information. Like what's going on right now with this interview.
Right.
So the heart, basically, our technology is mirroring us. Because the field that we radiate is carrying information. And for sure, it's carrying information about our emotional state. We've proven that. You can actually decode, if you will, or see the information being carried by the magnetic field of the heart. So next step, and it is that toroidal shape that you see there.
Right.
And so the next step in our research, this is going back to the 90s for us, right?
Yes.
Was to say, well, that's really cool. So what? Is there are our nervous systems able to detect the information from these fields from others in a measurable way, and does it have measurable consequences? Does it affect other people?
Right.
And the answer to that is absolutely yes. And again, we all know this intuitively in our experience. It's nothing really new here. We're just putting science to say, yeah, it's real and we can measure it. Like we say, God, the tension in the room is so thick you could cut it with a knife, right?
Right.
Yeah. Or God, it felt good being around them, or these kind of
very sensitive. I totally relate to that. I don't think a lot of people can. I feel that some people call it empathy or compassionate, or you're sensitive to things, but energy like that, just what you just said, you can walk into a room where you're having a conversation with somebody and you're like, wow, even if it's not about them or me, it's like you just feel something.
Even before you catch voice or body language, you can feel the energetic information.
Right.
And so there's what I'm really seeing here is that there's always an energetic level communication going on between people when they're, well, even non-locally, we're starting to see now, but certainly in a room together. And this is really important in so many contexts. And you've probably seen this yourself. Now that I've really understood this scientifically, I've kind of watched for it more. But you can watch two people in conversation. You're kind of off in the, as a bystander, just kind of not eavesdropping, but, hearing the conversation. And one person will say something to the other, but you can almost kind of sense they might be feeling something else. It's a mismatch.
Right.
And what the other person feeds back, what they think they heard, is what the energetic information was carrying, not what they actually said. You ever seen that?
Oh, yeah. It's almost like you can sometimes I'm thinking people refer to it as sometimes maybe they hear tone because you're misinterpreting the energy versus what's actually physically being said or what's being exchanged.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say you're misinterpreting the energy. I think we're actually reading it accurately.
Oh, right.
But it's a mismatch between what the words are and the energetic information. So then that leads to communication glitches.
Right.
And all kinds of things that go on.
Got it.
So
that makes a ton of sense. Now, you were just talking about, again, the field. I wanted to bring that up again as well. And I know you can speak to this slide as well. And I'm bringing up these slides because it's a little easier for us to kind of walk through these things and understand a little bit more. But what are we looking at here when we talk about the Earth's magnetic field and the resonance, the frequencies and so on? Just talk about this graph a little bit for us.
Okay. So now we're going global.
Yep.
And so part of, after 30 years of research of really heart, brain, and physiology of emotion, we started really seeing the importance of the energetic interaction that we were just talking about within our social circles, our families, our work teams, sports teams, and so on, and how we can really improve the coherence within a group, a family, a team, whatever, a leadership team. So this is taking it more to the global level. And as part of that research, we started a project about probably 15 years ago called the Global Coherence Initiative. And as part of that, we've installed a network of ultra-sensitive magnetometers around the Earth to measure what we call the resonant frequencies in the Earth's magnetic fields. And so this blew my mind. Even as a communication engineer in the past, I didn't know this, what I'm about to tell you, until I got into this field. So if we think back when we were in high school, or grade school, and we got to dump iron filings on a glass plate, right? You put your magnet under it, whether it's a horseshoe or a bar, and they all line up, right? And show you the shape of the field. But if you recall, those iron filings line up in parallel lines. So what that's also visualizing, letting us see, are what are called magnetic field lines. Right now, if we go to Earth and the geomagnetic field, the North Pole, the South Pole, the field lines going out. Well, what we didn't learn back then is you can pluck field lines, magnetic field lines, just like a guitar string, and they vibrate. Right. Even though they're a static field, like a guitar string is, right? It's always there until we pluck it. And what's plucking the field lines of Earth is the solar wind coming by. So the Earth is turning in the solar wind and it's rushing by at 1,000,000 miles per hour. So it's plucking the field lines and they vibrate. And that's what we call a resonant frequency. Or a field line resonance, as it says on the slide here.
Right.
What's wild, what turns out, is that one of the primary resonant frequencies of the field line resonances in frequency language is 0.1 hertz. That just means there's a cycle every 10 seconds, basically.
Right.
Well, what's incredible, and nobody put the dots together before, even though the field lines have been measured for years, is that's the same frequency, almost exactly the same frequency as the human heart rhythm when we're in that heart coherent state we were talking about earlier.
See, this is fascinating stuff. Okay, so let's just slow that down real quick. Is that the resonance of the magnetic fields of Earth, which are
vibrating
and they're affected by solar energy, the solar flares. I'm going to bring that up.
Solar wind, yeah.
Solar wind is literally in tune, in frequency, if you will, in resonance with individuals at the individual level.
Right. We also have a resonant frequency.
Right.
In terms of how the heart and brain communicate, and that's what called the coherent rhythm when we're operating in our resonant mode, which is exactly the same frequency or very close. There's some variation in different people, of course, and some variation in the field of the earth, but basically they're matched. So when we're in this coherent rhythm, like you see here, that's our heart rhythm, our HRV, that's what it's called. When we're in this heart, that's a heart coherent rhythm that you see there that you're showing now, versus an incoherent rhythm that's all scrambled and chaotic looking.
Right.
So when we naturally go into coherence when we feel good, right? When you walk out the door in the morning, it's just one of those beautiful days, the right temperature and the blue skies, and you just go, God, oh, what a beautiful day. You have that feeling.
Right.
Well, we're actually feeling appreciation, even though we may not think that or call it that. And that's what naturally takes us into that coherent state. So we're operating in our resonant frequency, which is more efficient. But now we're resonating at the same frequency as one of the primary frequencies of the Earth's resonant frequencies. So what?
Yeah.
Right? You might ask.
I'm always say, okay, thanks, right? Rollin. What does that mean to me?
Yeah.
In daily life. What does that mean to me?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's so important. Because if you think, get back to science class again, if we time travel back, tuning forks, right? If you didn't get to do it in science class, everybody knows the example where you got two tuning forks to the same note and you tap one, the other starts to vibrate with it. Okay, that's a high school or even middle school these days demonstration of what's called resonant coupling. You can transfer energy and information between two vibrating systems that are at the same frequency. So what have we just said? Us, Earth, vibrating at the same frequency. So we have the basic understanding or physics to understand how we can be transferring energy and information from the field, Earth's field, into us and vice versa. How our information can be broadcast or coupled to the larger field.
See, and okay, I want to go back to this as well. You mentioned this, so I thought I'd find it and bring it up. You talk about where it was coherent and incoherent. Just speak to these two that we're looking at right now, where again, one seems to be measuring somebody or a person that's experiencing these other emotions of frustration, anxiety, so on, and the other one, like you mentioned, appreciation, maybe love, these kinds of things. Talk to that as well.
Yeah, so these two graphs from the same person.
Okay. Wow.
Okay, that's important because in the one on the, I guess we're reversed here, maybe the left side where it says incoherence. Incoherent. Our heart rhythm looks like when we're feeling things like anxiety or frustration or impatience. And now here's what's really important. That rhythm, that chaotic looking or jerky looking rhythm is quite literally a measure of how synchronized the activity is in our brain and nervous system. So when that's showing that, what I was talking about earlier, when, well, how do I say this? So I want to keep things really simple here. That's that state of cortical inhibition. It's when we get thrown into this state of desynchronization, physiologically now, I'm talking about within our body,
right?
That inhibits the brain, especially the cortex and the frontal cortex. So this is kind of, I can say it a couple of ways, but it's why when we get angry, we do stupid things, right?
Yes.
Right. And of course, how many times have we done that? We get a bit frustrated with somebody, and then when we blurt out something that we probably don't even mean, right? That creates separation in the relationship or hurt feelings, more stress. We got to clean up, so on. So really what you're seeing out on the right side with coherence, this is what our heart rhythm looks like when the whole neural system, heart, brain, and all the activity in our nervous system is in sync or in coherent. That's why we call it coherence.
Right.
And this facilitates brain function. So now we have more options available. We think more clearly. So we're making better decisions in the moment. And that's what's really important. This is in the moment. This stuff is real time.
Right.
And we can switch back and forth between those two rhythms within a heartbeat or two.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. No, let's stay here for a second, Rollin. Let me ask you this. And again, everybody, any one of these subjects, 2-3 hour conversation. So I appreciate Rollin, you, like I said, trying to keep it simple for us. And it's not simple, everybody, but it's so worth, again, talking about here. So you just mentioned about this coherence and incoherence. So let's just stay with this right now.
Sure.
Where the world is, when I say the world, I'm referring to just individuals and then the collective, it feels like at times, that we're feeling a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry, a lot of frustration, which means theoretically what you're saying is that red line right now is basically what's being shown as a collective energy in the world right now. And of course, we want to work on ourselves for coherence and be part of the greater good, if you will. It sounds like to me that that's a very challenging thing, where if the world is being a collective of the red line, and we know that the goal is that blue line over there, which is really in resonance with the earth, it feels like we're always going to be a little bit out of sync with this thing. Is that a fair sort of thinking about it?
I would say yes, in that a lot of I think it's fair to say, I mean, watch the news, that there's more polarizations, whether it's political, cultural, racial, going on right now, I mean, than ever, probably, certainly in my lifetime.
Right.
And so there's a lot more people in the incoherent rhythms because of the anxiety, the fear, the unknown that so many people are experiencing. I mean, I just saw a report that that stress is an all-time high, at least in the United States. I think that's probably worldwide. I mean, it's like incredibly high. So that you can think of the incoherent rhythm as the stress rhythm and it does correlate to what we're feeding our field that we've been talking about that affects others locally and even the larger earth field. So yes, I would say that that's true. However, at the same time, if you look a little bit deeper, there's also another movement going on towards increased compassion, and care and cooperation at the same time. It's almost like there's a new world trying to emerge within the chaos of the old world.
Right.
Now, we don't see that on the news, but it's there. It's happening. You probably see that yourself in the show that you have here, Peter. That so many examples.
You're absolutely right. I want to make sure I'm not painting a negative picture. I'm just trying to put the correlation to what you say, is that if you look at what generally we experience, is that being put out, broadcasted, in media, these kinds of things in the world, where that energy is picked up. And I would say from my experience, it's probably not as much as we obviously could be doing. And I'm wondering, as you said, I'm going to let you please continue with this idea. I'm wondering, how do we bridge that role? And that's an unfair question mathematically to you, but you're the closest to this that I can think of.
I think from my perspective, there's really two things that are important here. So with these two rhythms that you're seeing, this is a great slide, is you can shift from incoherence to coherence within a couple of heartbeats with some practice. And this is really what HeartMath's all about. It's very practical, easy to use. In fact, a lot of people miss the elegance of HeartMath because of the simplicity, right, of the techniques. And so a lot of care has gone into our techniques to make them so simple that anyone can use them and get benefit from them very quickly. But it allows you to shift from the incoherent to the coherent anywhere, anytime. So much of what we focus on is in the moment self-regulation, being more self-aware of what's going on under the radar in terms, especially of our emotional world, our emotional diet, and being able to actually, it's like you've got an inner radio knob. We really do, where we can actually shift from incoherence to coherence right in the middle of a traffic jam or a staff meeting or a squabble going on in the family or at work. And that's what makes all the difference, because our mental faculties and our emotional stability really have to do with the underlying physiology. When we're out of sync, it's hard to think clearly. It's hard to clear the mental fog.
Yes.
The neural systems are chaotic.
Yes.
Right? So these simple techniques allow us to make that shift into coherence right in the moment. So we put a lot of energy on that. I mean, and it's great to, learn meditation techniques and do all the things that people do to reduce stress, but that's after the fact, right? After you beat yourself up all day long. And just give you an example, just feeling frustration for even a few minutes or less sets in motion at least 1,400 biochemical changes in our body.
Wow.
Probably way more, but at least that drain our energy, right? That lead to foggy thinking, poor decision making. So you can kind of get where I'm going and why it's so important to learn how to to self-regulate, if you will, choose our own emotional diet in the moment that the stress is happening.
Right.
Make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense, and I think it makes a lot of sense because I do want to bring it back to day in, day out. As you said earlier, okay, Roland, great, that we're all aligned with the magnetic field. What does that mean? But back to what you just said is, I think that we can all relate to our daily lives where we're at work, we're in traffic, we're in society, we're just living, and that day to day, that heartbeat to heartbeat reaction, to make that incoherence amplified, it just seems to be all around us, and it takes a real conscious effort, as you said, these effective energy techniques, these management techniques of being able to be consciously aware that you can change that in a heartbeat. So if you are feeling stressed at work, you can actually use one of these techniques to help you get out of that. I'm going to bring them up right now, actually, Roland, because I think it's worthwhile for people to understand that, like you said, maybe we're getting lost in the we think it's more difficult than it is. There's some of the techniques you're talking about where literally some of them are just breathing. I don't mean just, but they're breathing exercises, for example.
Well, yeah, the first step is breathing of most of the techniques. And we kind of separate out step one, which is heart focused breathing, of a lot of our steps. And the reason for that is, well, breathing is something that we have conscious control of. I can choose to breathe slower, deeper, or whatever rhythm I want, because that's one of the autonomic processes that we can consciously intervene with pretty easily. So I won't go in, we get it right. We could do a whole show around this. So there are connections between neural connections between the lungs and the brain and the heart, so that when we breathe, whatever we're breathing at, we are actually affecting the rhythm of the heart. I won't go into all the anatomical details here, but
Right.
so when we choose to breathe slower and deeper, right, we are shifting the heart rhythm. In fact, a lot of people get confused about why breathing techniques are so universal and why they actually work.
Yeah.
Right. We think we're getting more oxygen in the blood or something. Well, that may be true in long things, but no, it's because we're changing the rhythm of the heart, which is changing the signal being sent to the brain from the heart. That's the actual mechanism.
Wow. Say that one more time for me again about breathing, because I'm going to tell you a story afterwards about I did this last night with you, with your app, with the global app. The breathing again.
Okay. So that because of the neural connections between the lungs, brain, and heart, brainstem, heart, when we choose to breathe slower and deeper, we are modulating or changing the rhythm of the heart. Now we're changing. Remember, I said the heart sends far more information to the brain, right?
Right.
So we're changing the pattern of that information being sent to the brain, to the emotional centers, the amygdala, to the thalamus, which controls synchronization of the global activity of the brain, and so on. So it's a way we can breathe ourselves into increased neural synchronization or heart-brain synchronization. Now that's step one, right?
Wow.
Then we usually add more steps to that, because here's an interesting thing. This is another show, but the way the brain works, and one of my mentors, pretty famous guy, 𝗂𝗏𝘃𝗵 was his name, was a very, very famous neuroscientist. He coined the term executive functions to describe the frontal cortex and many, many other things. And what I learned from Carl was we have to think of the brain as a pattern matching system. Okay. We're really good. Our brains, we can, like we're at a football game or something, and we see the sea of faces, we can instantly recognize a friend.
Right.
Right. So we're good at recognizing patterns. It's still hard for computers to do. A lot of energy goes into that. But anyway, I don't get off topic here. So we have, for this to work, we have what are called baselines, right? Which are what is familiar and comfortable to us.
Right.
And so the brain has a reference that it's always comparing the now to, and that's what we mean by our baseline. So some people, if our baseline gets shifted to one of, say, anxiety, we're worried all the time. I had a grandmother that was that way, drove us crazy as little kids. She's always worried about us, right? Everything was worry.
Yeah.
Well, that was her baseline, and that's what was comfortable to her. So actually feeling, if we have a baseline, and this is true of everything, I'm just using anxiety here, where that's become our familiar, it's automatic and comfortable. So actually feeling something more coherent is uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar.
Wow.
Right.
We're more comfortable with being uncomfortable.
But if our baseline has become that established as that is anxiety or quick to anger or always diligent or whatever that that baseline has gotten shifted to.
I get it. Okay, I understand. It's almost like if you always see the glass half empty, then that's what you see. That's normal.
That's your baseline, right?
It's your baseline. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have a baseline that's say stress and anxiety are familiar because of life and situations. I mean, there's no judgment here. It's just so many people, that's what's going on.
Sure.
And so much, by the way, of our work is about how do we shift that baseline.
Right.
So if you start breathing at a coherent rhythm and you have one of those maladapted baselines, that's going to feel uncomfortable at first. So for about half the population who isn't familiar with these kinds of things or meditation practices or self-regulation and these types of things, breathing after about a minute becomes uncomfortable at a coherent rhythm because it's not familiar.
Wow. That is true. I've experienced it. Keep going.
Okay. So what we found is if you say, okay, we do heart focused breathing, and that's got its own step, but within that first minute, now you want to make a shift emotionally. So this might be remembering how you feel when your pet greets you when you come home, or how that feeling you have at a special place that you really like in nature. It might be a walk in the forest or at the ocean or whatever it is, but now activate that feeling. It's not a visualization. So when you add in that regenerative feeling, that actually is what takes us naturally into coherence. Remember how I said when you walk out and it's a beautiful day and you go, God, so that actually allows you to stay in that coherent rhythm a lot longer and helps over time shift that baseline.
Right. And you want that baseline to be shifting towards what? What do you want
towards more coherence, so that the optimal when we're operating at our resonant energy efficient frequency. Right. So many studies have now proven that when we're in that more coherent state, more synchronized state, that's optimal. It's an optimal state. We think better, we make better decisions, we have faster reaction times. That's why so many athletes use HeartMath, right? We're more coordination. I mean, all the neural systems are more synchronized, so they work more efficiently.
Right.
So you get where so you have to do that over a few times. And here's what triggered me to talk about this, Peter, was something you just said, because it does take effort at first, because we're having to overcome the inertia of that old baseline. But with practice, we start establishing the new. So now these types of being in sync and incoherent become automatic. They become the new baseline. We don't have to work very hard.
Right.
And this is when it's transformational in people's lives. And we hear this all the time. I mean, I've got people just not too long ago just saying, my adult daughter just told me, Dad, you've had a brain transplant. Because he had shifted.
The baseline is shifted. And now it feels like almost a different personality, a different
Exactly. This is so important. In fact, Dr. Pribram proved what I'm about to say and that is that you cannot think yourself into a new baseline. You have to shift the rhythms coming from, especially the heart, into the brain, because that's the main source of the rhythmic activity that it's basing its baseline on. So this is not some theory. This has actually been proven.
Okay, Rollin, I got to spew it out because it's just about. So are you telling? So that sounds like to me you're saying theoretically that affirmations, just saying things, might not move you as much as actually the sense that you have to move it from here. You can't move it from here.
Well, it's not saying that affirmations aren't helpful and important, because that gets into a whole other topic. But I'm saying to shift your baseline, yes, you can't think yourself into a new baseline.
Wow.
At least not directly.
Yeah, no, this is
it doesn't mean that certain techniques that are more cognitively based don't also shift physiology and indirectly start changing the afferent or the ascending information into the brain. But it's a very indirect way to go about it.
Oh my goodness. Okay, this is powerful. Hey, this is a nice transition what I'm going to try to do here, and it's just accidental because I do want to acknowledge we're getting people from all over the world, actually, Roland, kind of tuning in. So I think that's kind of cool with the, basically the global initiative about coherence with HeartMath and so on, that the energy of the entire world. So I do want to acknowledge a few people that are tuning in. They're from Tampa, Florida. Tim, good to see you, my friend. Appreciate that. Here's Jojo. She's tuning in from Ottawa, Canada. So there we have two countries right there. So in Massachusetts, Melody, good to see you. Thank you for tuning in. I know Andrea is down in Houston, Texas. So we're getting a nice mix here, Roland. We're getting a nice mix here. We got Atlanta, Georgia. Marcello, good to see you, my friend. Fantastic. Tim's in Pennsylvania. Good to see Tim. So again, there's that nice mix. And how about this one? My good friend, Chris Lomas, Odessa, Ukraine. Here we are. We're on the border of Moldova and Ukraine is where this gentleman is, Roland. So a lot of energy over there, as you can imagine. Tremendous amount of energy. So I just want to acknowledge everybody who's tuning in. There's a good friend of mine, Jeanette, good to see you from Baltimore. I think she's tuning in from Baltimore. And of course, I think you know this person. Look at this person. Beautiful.
Oh, Jacqueline. Hey, Jacqueline. Great.
Jacqueline Way is tuning in from Vancouver, I'm assuming. I hope she's in Vancouver. She's in Canada. So, of course, she's a big fan of yours. And I want to thank her for connecting us as well to pull this together. I wanted to mention all of those. So thank you for everybody who's tuning in and watching from around the world. That will bring up this idea of the coherence and the global initiative that you have, and I wanted just to talk about that a little bit, because I was on the app last night. I actually measured myself. I was participating in this thing. I know you have a big one coming up on actually next week. There's two for the app that are connected. One on November 8th, one on November 9th. November 8th is going to be a big one in the United States because they have a lot going on in that sense. But let's just talk about the Global Coherence Initiative, and a little bit more about the idea that we're trying to take all of this energy and tap into it collectively around the world. Let's start with that.
Yeah, we kind of covered a little bit of that earlier when we were talking about how our physiological rhythms, both the heart and brain, are in resonance or the same frequency as the two primary rhythms of the earth. We only talked about one, but there's another one that overlaps our brain waves. So we have the basic understanding of how it's at least possible to transfer, we'll call it energy and information, between us and the Earth's fields. So the Global Coherence Initiative on the science side is a project to really kind of bold, see if we can actually measure that and prove that's going on. But the other half of this project, which is just as important, if not more important, is really, like it says here, uniting more and more people around the world in heart-focused care and intention to help facilitate the shift in global consciousness, right? To more stability and cooperation. Doesn't mean we have to agree with everybody, but we don't have to be hating everybody either.
Right.
You know what I mean? And enduring peace. That's really what this project's about. So there's a large educational component of teaching people techniques. How do we get more coherent? And then technologies to measure it, like you're talking about the Global Coherence app, which measures both our individual our level of personal coherence, but also the collective, whoever's there with us at the group level. So you can create your own groups in the app, for your family or your work team or whatever you're wanting to practice getting more coherent collectively. Because there really is an amplification effect that goes on when we do it together.
Yeah. Absolutely. And there's also some science. The reason why this is the monitoring system, I know that there's special sites set up around the world, one of which, Roland, is just 2.5 hours north of me.
Is that right?
Yeah. And I'm going, listen, before we speak again, which I hope we do, I was trying to get up there this week. I really was. I wanted to get up there and get some pictures and kind of show you and have that experience so we could have this, but it's just 2.5 hours away from me. So I'm definitely going to go up and check into that. Talk about that a little bit, where again, this is more science data collection, where we're collecting that through the monitoring system, this connectivity from around the world.
Right. So, we're made to do science. We have to measure things, obviously. So one of the things we're measuring is the Earth's magnetic and energetic fields and frequencies, and showing. Then when we measure people or other things, we can say, well, okay, how are the two interacting and correlating? And we've published a lot on that. And there's mountains of research. I mean, literally, I've got probably a stack over here to my right on one of my things over here. It's about 2 feet tall of papers of research studies that have shown that when the Earth's fields are disturbed, that has negative impacts on us. More hospital admissions, but especially more mental and emotional challenges, more depression. We're quicker to anger, these types of things, because we're living in a disturbed field. When the Earth gets hit with a solar flare, for example. But so we've been looking not just at that, but what happens during normal days, and how can we get more in sync with the Earth's field, and does that benefit us? So yeah, this is a map of where we have our magnetometers around the world, which I wish we didn't have to do this ourselves. I mean, this is really expensive and kind of hard to do.
Yes,
because there's a lot of magnetometers out there, but they're a different type that are measuring the strength of the field, and you think of it, the ripple, the disturbance, more for saving satellites and power lines. They haven't really, where our sites are really designed. And this is a global network of calibrated, time synchronized sensors, so we really can see what the Earth's doing energetically or magnetically. And so that's resulted in a lot of people using our data actually for studies even past what we're doing.
Right.
We share our data. I'm kind of going off track there a bit.
No. It's all good. Listen, and I said to this at the beginning, everybody, every one of these subject matters is a 2-hour show.
Yeah. So what? There was a couple of studies that were actually just published in the last few months that are relevant to your question there, though. One, I think most of us probably have just a good intuitive sense of, well, it's kind of good to be in sync, with the Earth, right? But the rhythms of the Earth, I mean, kind of duh.
Yeah, you can feel it. I know what you mean. You can physically feel it. It's a mental thing, but it's a physical thing. I understand.
Yeah,
and we can all resonate with that.
But a study, we did a global study of groups in 5 countries that were monitors to monitor your heart rate or heart rate variability over many days, 24/7. And in the middle of that study, we organized a time where all the participants in all of these groups, over 100 people, used one of the HeartMath techniques called the heart lock-in, which shifts you into coherence, and you sustain it for a little longer period in that particular technique. And in this case, it was just 15 minutes. And what we saw was, it blew me away. I would never have predicted what we found. And that was that in all the groups, every one of them, there was a significant, a big, not just subtle jump in the synchronization with the group members of those groups around the world with the Earth's magnetic field. So just being coherent for 15 minutes had a carryover effect that lasted over the next 24-hour period.
Wow.
So we also looked at the synchronization amongst the group members in each of the groups. So just being coherent, we're increasing our synchronization, right, within us, which has a lot of health benefits and anti-stress and so on, but also increased the measurable synchronization amongst the group members and with the fields of the Earth.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. And no, we're not going off topic. We're staying right on.
Well, let me give you one more so what. We've published a lot on this, but it kind of blew me away. Again, I wouldn't have predicted. So we work a lot with the University of Lithuania, a couple of different groups there, one in the cardiovascular group in the hospital and a mathematics group there. And so in collaboration with them, they were looking at what's called resting metabolic rate. Now, if you're not familiar with that, that's a measure of how much energy the body requires to sustain basic life function when you're just sitting at rest.
Right. Breathe and just pump. Your blood is pumping.
Just to sit there and maintain basic life functions. So there's a measure for that. And they looked at it. It was over 400 people over a 5-year period. And that's where one of our magnetometers is. They kind of keep an eye on it for us and maintain it at the University of Lithuania, way out in the country there. Mm-hmm. What they found was that when we have higher energy in the resonant frequencies of the Earth's field, people's resting metabolic rate is significantly lowered. Okay, get what I just said. Right down to the cellular level.
Right.
We're more efficient. We're more in harmony. The body is requiring less energy, less oxygen and energy to maintain basic life functions when we're sitting there in a resonant field.
And is that do you think that that can obviously help in shifting those people the baselines?
Well, no, it's not going to shift their baseline, but it's just giving you a fundamental kind of reason that it's good to be in sync.
It's good to be okay. I see where you're going. Okay.
That's a question you asked. So yeah.
Yes, of
Yeah.
course. Yes, of course. Okay. No, I get it. No, I appreciate understanding that. I really, really do. Again, we're moving around a little bit. This is a question I specifically wanted to ask you because it was something that it's in my life these days. It's something I'm fascinated with. I've visited Rwanda before in the past, and they've experienced things there that required forgiveness, these kinds of things. So this idea, let me ask you this, Roland, this connection between, what is your thoughts on this idea of the connection between coherence, global coherence and individual coherence and forgiveness? Where do you think that plays a role?
Well, yeah, I think, more than that, I guess, but as what it really requires, I guess, to be more individually coherent is that we're actually taking more self-responsibility for our emotional diet, if you will. And it's really clear. I don't like to use the term positive and negative emotions, just because there's a lot of debate. But however, physiologically, we know that different emotions have very different effects in our body. So I tend to call them depleting emotions and regenerative emotions. So the regenerative ones that add energy to our system, that take us into coherence and more synchronization, are things like gratitude, appreciation, forgiveness, kindness, compassion, care. Right? Those that are energy inefficient and take us into incoherence are anger and frustration and impatience and so on. Okay. So as we didn't even, this is a whole show we should do sometime together that we didn't even touch on, but as we get more coherent, we're opening the heart. And because we've done a whole series of studies on intuition, and how we connect with our larger self, which is an energetic system. It's real. I'm not some metaphor here. I'm saying this is literal. And that basically that's what raises our consciousness and our awareness. And as that happens, I can say it like we're increasing the vibrational state of our consciousness. And that naturally leads to kind of an awareness that forgiveness is something that we do for us, if nothing else.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's more than that, but becoming more compassionate, more forgiving, more kind raises our vibration. Or they go together, if you will.
Yeah.
And that's really what, if the world is going to survive, right, and we're going to make it through the shift that's going on with all the stress, I would say that opening the heart and really raising our consciousness vibration is the only way through this. Right. That's how we can finally rise above, our baselines that might have come from our childhood programming and society, to really rise above and start, being more forgiving, more kindness, more cooperation, collaboration. Doesn't mean we have to agree with everybody.
That's right. Right. Yeah. Again, those conversations, they butt up against each other, where again, you can still have the civility and the peaceful.
Exactly. Yeah.
To communicate. Yeah. I think it gets back to communication, doesn't it? The ability to communicate properly and understanding that the energies are flowing in that communication. And if you're out of sync with them, it almost, like you said, you can misinterpret, maybe not so much the energy, but you can misinterpret what's being said with that energy.
Yeah. And, I see it so often, Peter. The world has become so polarized that for many people to even be able to actually really hear and understand what someone else is saying, they think they have to agree with them. It's just not true. But right now, people aren't even hearing each other. To even understand where somebody else is coming from. And that's a problem, right?
That is, the ability to communicate, again, to hear, not, really listen and hear what someone's saying. And again, adding those energies that you referred to in emotional wise, like empathy and compassion, and listening to somebody and adding those and feeling you're in sync with them. It's an art that it seems that I think we've lost its civility wise, certainly in the political sphere, that's for sure. But it seems to be trickling over into society in general with social media and
and we've done so much of this kind of work, and many of our trainers, the 10,000 or so HeartMath trainers out there, in some pretty tough settings, like in the political divide arenas and things. And it's really fascinating when people can finally get to a more coherent place where they can actually hear the other people. Again,
Right.
you don't have to agree with them. That they actually find that they're not as far apart as they thought.
Yeah, we're not that much difference.
And,
Be very conscious of your time, Roland. I know we've got a couple more minutes here. I'm just looking at the corner here, and like you said, every one of these are shows in themselves. I'm gonna just before you go though, show you there's so much we didn't even talk about. I do definitely want to ask you this one last question here before we kind of move in any other direction. Before you have to go, which is, and this is just a personal question to you, really. I mean, you're so in touch with all of this, so. Your opinion of this, it matters. It matters to me, that's for sure. What do you think is the biggest problem today in the world that prevents us from this coherence? What do you think, generally speaking, of all the research you've done, what's preventing us from doing that?
Well, oh boy, that's
I know it's a big one.
It's a big one, and there's several ways I could answer that. It's, to keep it, it's about the simple way I could say that is that we really do have the heart and the mind, and they're two different energetic systems. And we've become so mind-based, which is really separation, judgment. That's kind of become the dominant, if I say, frequency or behavior. And it's really that being cut off from the intelligence of our own heart. That's the biggest problem. And now that's manifested in the separations, the extreme polarizations and separations that we're seeing, whether that's from other people, whether it's even within families, but certainly within our communities and with the earth itself.
Right.
It's really a problem of separation.
And as you said, I think we were living, maybe we're just living so much inside of our minds, thinking again, the mind is driving how we feel, our passions are driving everything, and obviously
they are. That's the problem. Yeah,
I see. We're not listening to the heart,
right?
Listening to the mind enough. Just for purposes, just to show you. Listen, everybody. Look, we haven't even talked about resilience, stress, and emotions. Roland, haven't talked about self-regulation. We didn't even touch upon heart variability. You talked about heart rate variability. We didn't even go into that. The story about the solar and human activities throughout history. Didn't even touch on that, folks. There is so much that we could chat about. Roland, I hope we can do this again because I'm being conscious of your time up there. I do want to ask you this question here, and I get it in now because in case you never know, if you go off and researching stuff, I won't catch you for another little while. I normally ask people a whole bunch of questions about them, and next time I'm hoping we can chat a little bit more you as well, to learn about you as a human being and so on. Let me ask you this. Normally I do a little thing called this or that. I'm going to ask you one question out of that, and then I'll ask you to finish one sentence for me. So I just wanted to show everybody, listen, there's so much here that we didn't even touch on. But I'd love for you to answer this one. The difference between these two things, you don't have to explain them, but for you, if you had to choose this or that, one or the other, hope or freedom?
Hope.
Because?
Well, I mean, that's okay. If you want the because, it's. I mean, freedom is. I mean, most of the countries in the world really are free already, and we certainly have the freedom to make our own internal choices. That's really but it's the hope is what's going to move humanity forward.
Agree with that. Yeah, agree with that, my friend. End this sentence for me. I love my life because.
I love my life because I'm doing what I do.
I couldn't agree with you more. You are doing amazing work, my friend. It's so cerebral, and yet it's so heart-centered. It just combines the two, which is just right up my alley. So I can't tell you what a pleasure it has been to chat with you. I hope we do it again.
Let's do it.
Let's do it because there's just so much to talk about, everybody. Here's a couple places where you can make sure you can reach Roland and learn more about literally HeartMath. I think that's where you need to start, everybody. Go to the website, heartmath.org. There's so many tools there The app is something I hope that everyone gets involved with. Download the app, get involved with this idea of being part of the global initiative. Of course, this is a nonprofit, everybody. HeartMath, they're always looking for partners out there. So I thought I'd throw that in for you, Rollin.
Appreciate
always
that.
looking for, I mean, as you said, those monitoring systems are very expensive, everybody, and this data. So please, any businesses out there, and if there's a reason for you to reach out to Rollin and his organization, please do that. HeartMath.org. Rollin, such a pleasure. I can't tell you how much it means to me that you spent time with me today. It's been a pleasure, my fine friend. And most people know how this all goes for me around here, but this is how we do it out here. Rollin, is just be kind out there, everybody. That's all you have to do, right?
Yep, exactly.
Just be kind out there, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to everybody in the comments. We'll go back and check all that. Rollin, I'll be in touch with you, and we'll go from there. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you again next time. Cheers.
All right, have a
you know the drill. Yeah, just be kind out there, everybody. Just be kind. Just be kind out there. I mean, that's all you have to do. Just be kind out there, everybody. Hey, just be kind. It's just be kind out there, everybody. Just be kind. That's all you have to do. Just be kind out there, everybody. Just be kind out there. I mean, that's all you have to do. Just be kind out there. I mean, just be kind out there. Just be kind out there. I mean,